Hello everyone. In this lecture, we're not going to be opening 3ds Max. We're only going to be focusing in looking for references for our next task. And we're going to be searching for actual photos and not renders, as we're trying to get as close as possible to reality. So the idea behind this is that we find these references from professional photographers, like I mentioned in the first lectures, so that we can bring these images to 3ds Max and start modeling them from scratch. So this has multiple advantages for us. The first one is that we're going to be practicing our modeling. The second one is that we're going to be developing our skill sets for camera composition and also lighting composition, which are really important factors when creating a render. So yes, we are going to be modeling the exact photo that you're going to be going for, and we obviously going to start off from the interior renders. So we need to find interior photos using popular architecture websites such as ArcDaily, Design Boom, and so on. So first of all, here in ArcDaily, and I really recommend these websites to look for your photos because they are from professional photographers and also high quality. So because we're looking for interiors, we're going to go to projects, and down here we have the interior design section. So let's click on it. And if we go down here, we can start looking for our references. Now, one thing that you must keep in mind is that your RAM that you have installed in your PC is going to influence a lot the type of interior that you're going to be going for. So if you have 8 GB of RAM, for instance, you're going to have to model small interior spaces, but there's nothing to worry about because you're still going to be practicing all that we stated before, which are the modeling, lighting, and camera compositions. So let's have a look at interior examples that you can go for. So first of all, I have this example. So I would suggest you to go for something a little bit more complex than this. This is a small interior. However, we won't develop many modeling skills if we look for something as simple as this. For instance, we only have 3 voids here and just a couple of columns. So we're not going to be working much on this one, but if you really like it, you can go for such interiors. I'm not saying to go for this one specifically. You can grab whichever interior that you want. For example, here we have a little bit more of detail that you could easily do with 8 GB of RAM installed in your PC. So we have some interesting details in the ceiling going on. Also these furnitures, we wouldn't be getting them from 3D Sky because they're very easy to do. So in here, you would practice your modeling skills, your lighting and camera compositions. So let me just zoom in this one. So there are multiple interesting objects within this interior scene. So something like this for 8 GB of RAM installed in your PC are going to be just fine. And if you just browse the other photos within this project, you can find something even more interesting. Here's another good example of a small but powerful interior in which we can model multiple objects such as these elements in the ceiling. Now we have a very nice furniture here that we could do with the floor generator. Now, if the furniture is simple enough, you can model it yourself. However, if it's a bit complicated, it's better not to waste time in modeling it and just getting a similar one from 3dsky.org. So again, this one and the example that we just saw are perfect interiors to start off with. Now, another thing that we have to keep in mind is the camera composition that the photographer used for this specific photo. So in this one, we only have one vanishing point, which would be in the center. And we're going to be talking more about that in the next lectures, but I'm just giving you a heads up. While in the other one that we just saw, in here we have 2 vanishing points. So if you have some drawing backgrounds, or if you're an architect or designer, you might have an idea of what I'm talking about. And if not, don't worry, we're going to be looking at this topic in the next lectures. Okay, so moving on. We have this interior, which will also be a good example of a small interior where we have lots of details on it, especially with this curved ceiling and also the bookcase that has this organic design on it. We can also design these types of chairs because it's just one. We could actually do it, or we can find it in 3dsky.org. One more thing is that here we can see a reflection from the exterior light coming in, which is very interesting and very nice to have in the renderings. Next up, we have this interior in which you can get lots of experience for your modeling, lighting, and camera again. So we have multiple lights going on in here. We have artificial lights and also an exterior light. So you can have a look at also the stairs with this organic design on them. And now this type of furniture, we wouldn't be modeling it. It would take us too long to do it. So in this case, preferably get it from 3dsky.org. just a similar set to it. It doesn't have to be the exact model. But the table at the right side, we could actually do it just by creating some boxes or rectangles, and we can see that the top is just a glass table. So this one would be interesting to design. Okay, moving on, we have this type of interior. Now we can see that there are plenty of exterior details in this one, so I wouldn't recommend going for something like this, in which it mixes both interior and exterior. Let's just keep it in the interior side until we get to the exterior renders. However, if you really want to go for something like this, and I wouldn't blame you because it looks very nice, and again, you would get lots of modeling experience for this one, especially this side right here. It looks awesome. Now this type of additional details, we might not find it in 3dsky.org, so we would have to model it because it's a very specific design. And it's not that hard to do it now with all of our skill sets. In the back we have this type of chair. We wouldn't be modeling that. It would take us, again, too much time. And we have to save some of that time in order to do multiple renders and not just one. So in this case, we would go and look for something similar in 3dsky.org. Now another thing about this interior is that we can see in the TV screen how the reflections turn a bit wavy here. And we're going to be talking about later on how to create this type of reflections, but just a heads up again, we would just use a noise map on our reflections. Okay, next up we have this interior. If you have 8 GB of RAM, I wouldn't recommend you going for this one as we have many details now. And we can see this in the structure of the ceiling and also all of these pipes that are going on in there. We also have multiple furnitures in which our poly count would go through the roofs. So if you have 8 GB of RAM, just stay with the smaller examples that we just saw. Now if you have 16 GB of RAM, it's more than enough to create this type of interior. So in this one we have a very interesting background, and all of these details that we see here, we can actually color them separately but randomly with our multi-map component that we've already seen. So again, you would probably need more than 8 GB of RAM to create this type of interior. Okay, so we're going to be avoiding this type of interior because it's mostly exterior rather than interior. So we're not going to be going for this type of renders until we get to our exterior renderings, of course. And the level of detail that this one has, we might need even a little bit higher than 16 GB. And keep in mind that if you have more than 24 GB of RAM, you are good to go. You can create any interior that you want. And by any, I mean this type of interiors. So we can see the detail that this one has. It has lots of different interesting objects here going on. And if you go for something like this, well, let me congratulate you because you're going to be gaining a lot of experience on all of the points that we've seen so far. Don't forget that if you go for something as complicated as this photograph, and you stumble in some parts, maybe in the modeling or camera positioning or even lighting, you can contact us through our Discord group at any time, and you'll get my personal help or any other tutors available at the time. So in here we can see that we don't only have the exterior light coming in, but also lots of artificial lights. And the reflections here in the glass are just splendid, and you're going to be having lots of fun on creating something of this type. Now, I'm not saying to go for this one specifically, but something with a lot of details as this one. Now, for the furniture here, I wouldn't recommend you modeling it, but if you want, just go ahead. However, let's not waste our time in this type of things, I would suggest. And don't be afraid of using the models from 3dsky.org. Now, ArcDaily is not the only website in which you can get your references from. We also have Design Boom. However, I strongly recommend you to find it in ArcDaily because it's one of the most popular architecture websites out there, and we only have photographs there, not renderings. So Design Boom sometimes have renderings instead of photos, so that's not really good for us. However, you're welcome to try it out. We can also find references in Pinterest, but in Pinterest there are more renders than photos. But for example, I found an image such as this one, but unfortunately it's a low quality one. So if we find something in Pinterest, for example, let's try and find a high quality photo here. I'm not entirely sure that this is the photo or a rendering. It seems to be a photo for what I see right now, but it's not a high quality one. So if you're in the same position, go ahead and look for the original link, and I try to find it. And this is it. I'm not really sure if this is a high quality photo or not, but let's keep it at a high resolution. Now, looking at this example, I would say that this type of hanging lights, you would have to go ahead and look at 3dsky.org. Modeling this would take you a lot of time, but here you can see this type of hair-like texture. There are textures out there that you can put in this type of objects. Now for this bottom furniture, because it's a bit far away, you might get away with a free model from 3dsky.org. Now obviously the ones at the back, all the way at the back here, we would get something free, no questions asked. No point on wasting $7 of your wallet buying something that you won't even see properly. So keep in mind that the more renders that we do at this point, the better. So we're going to be getting better at modeling, at lighting and camera composition. And after modeling something interesting, such as the interior that we just saw, which is this one right here, for example, your modeling skills are going to be so much better that you're going to start modeling a lot faster. So I would suggest you to go for at least a minimum of 3 interior renders. That means that you have to look for 3 different photographs in the website that I just mentioned. Now, a good number that I would like you to go for, it's around 5 interior renders before we move on into the exterior renderings. So keep that in mind, everyone. And you can even go for 1 if you want to, but this is just a recommendation that I'm giving you. So the more practice that we have, it's obvious that we're going to be getting better and better. Now, one thing that I don't want you to forget is that if you stumble in somewhere, if you don't know what kind of photograph you need to go for or something similar to it, or you're stuck in the modeling process or lighting or camera composition, just reach for us and we'll get you back as soon as we can. But we're not starting the modeling yet. In the meantime, just concentrate on finding an interior design that you really like. Okay, so this is the end of this lecture. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you in the next one.